Welcome back to another edition of the Fried Egg Golf Podcast. Today, I am joined by Fried Egg Golf's Brendan Porath, my co-host, usually on the Shotgun Start. We haven't done a podcast on here since the start of the Shotgun Start, I don't think, as well as the great Geoff Shackelford, a podcast regular, the writer of the Quadrilateral, a wonderful newsletter on Substack that I recommend everybody subscribe to. And we are going to break down our 5 kind of favorite, most memorable events of 2024 as a way to kind of cap off the year, as well as talk a little bit golf architecture right out of the gates. So I'm excited for this. I wanted to get a little extra episode out before the holiday season here, give people something to listen to on their travels. I hope everybody has a great holidays. Safe travels, and looking forward to next year with this podcast. We will have an episode out, I think on New Year's Day is probably when we'll release it, but that will be a PGA Tour season preview with the golf kicking off at Kapalua, maybe another topic in there as well. But looking forward to next year on this podcast. First, before we get to this conversation, I would urge everybody to go check out Fat Cork. They are a longtime partner of ours on the podcast. This is the time of year for champagne. They are connoisseurs of champagne. They go to France and they find all the individual growers and work out, partnerships with them to get their own private stock. So the growers' private stock, they curate extraordinarily good champagne for you. And my wife, we get this every quarter. My wife loves it. It's like her favorite day is when the Fat Cork comes because, it's just some new champagne to explore over the next couple months. So you can do a subscription. This is a great last minute holiday gift for a champagne lover in your life, or you can buy bottles, just bottles on their own. Great for the New Year's right around the corner for those celebrating. So if you use the promo code GOLF, you'll get free shipping, which is not an inconsequential number when you're talking about shipping champagne. This stuff is awesome. It's Fat Cork, FATCORK.com. This guy, the owner is a golf nut, and I'm glad to have him support this podcast. So check it out. Use the promo code GOLF for free shipping. All right, I am joined by 2 of my favorite people to talk golf with. Brendan Porath, who I talk way too much golf with on a regular basis on Shotgun Start, and Geoff Shackelford, the CEO, head of creative, lead editor, writer, podcaster, CMO, chief operating officer of the Quadrilateral, a staple of any golf aficionado's newsletter collection, and a wonderful holiday gift, wonderful gift, last minute gift. Brendan and I like to talk about Shotgun Start on Shotgun Start, those types of gifts that you can get at the last minute, print out a receipt and just put it in an envelope and hand it to somebody. This is quad gifting season.
Well, thanks, Andy. Yeah, you left out Chief Content Officer, but that's okay. Yeah, it is that time of year when you forgot somebody or something too. Not that ever happens, and you just hit a few buttons, and there you go. I've got a little discount for my current subscribers, so I appreciate the plug and appreciate the reading, and I've enjoyed your year in review and a couple of the memories that I helped jog with my various ramblings during the majors.
I got to ask, this is an off-topic question. We'll get into the meat of this podcast in a second, but how are you enjoying Big Ten hoops? You're a big UCLA guy. Welcome to the Big Ten.
Yeah. Reality will set in when they go east. But I mean, they play Washington. Yeah, the Rutgers. I mean, everybody always, both football and basketball, everybody mentions, I can't wait for UCLA Rutgers or UCLA Maryland, kind of has a basketball tradition. They've played and there's some stuff there. But yeah, it's look, the Bruins are ready for it. They play kind of a Big Ten style, tough, ugly Mick Cronin basketball. So, but right now it's the UCLA women that everybody's. I mean, they're getting bigger crowds than the men. It's kind of frightening, to be honest.
Well, that's what everybody wants out of women's golf. Is where's the popularity? And
well, that'll be up to the next commish. Yeah.
Yeah. I do have to stand up for Rutgers basketball. They've got projected 2 of the top 3 picks. They got Ron Harper's kid.
Right. Who was great. His dad was. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's unbelievable, the kid. So Rutgers might be a powerhouse this year.
Ron Harper was his dad was unbelievable before he started hurting his knees. I mean, when the Clippers got him, and then of course he went to the Clippers and the injuries began. So anyway, but that's Danny cool. That's good to know. Right? Yeah, it was a Danny Ferry trade. Nice memory Clippers.
There. I remember that Miami Red Hawks. Great. Yeah.
Then he came to the Bulls and won a bunch of championships.
Right. That's right.
All right. So topic for today, we're going to do one golf architecture takeaway from 2024, and then we're going to dive into our 5 favorite events of 2024. I'm guessing we're going to have some overlap in here. Yeah. So this should, it should just take an hour and a half like every pod does. Geoff, we'll start with you. What's your golf architecture take?
Well, I'm going to try to
take thought, memory, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So, I'm working on it's just over 20 years of an update for my Grounds for Golf, and most of it's held up well, but I'm throwing out a couple chapters that are now outdated, and it's shocking what's changed. So this is my way of trying to be positive before I bitch and moan about something. But it's amazing how much has changed in those 20 years, and so it's great to see the fun factor still being something of late that is on top of mind for people on whether they like it or not. But Andy, I got to tell you, I this year my current thing is the cost of these projects and these dollar figures. I just can't believe some of them. I just saw the green fee at Cabot in Florida, $395, and that's being passed along. The high construction costs, and I just don't get it. And I think we have to kind of have a serious conversation about what's going on. I mean, the minimalists are charging a lot of money or running up pretty big tabs. And we know, sometimes people put a big dollar figure on a project because they think that impresses somebody. I don't know if it does or not. I don't think it does. And certainly at a club where people are probably financing the project, they don't think it's so cute. So anyway, that's kind of my take on the current state of affairs. Everything is pretty great in terms of the architecture business, but this cost thing, and of course 2025 could be a disaster for the golf course construction industry if the Trump administration goes forward with the deportation program. So that's gonna that if you think it's expensive now, it's gonna get worse.
I think the thing that I completely agree with your sentiment. What's crazy to me is that sometimes you hear the cost as like a badge of honor. It's like, you wouldn't believe we're spending $25 million on this project. And it's like, and then it's like, oh, but our guest fees because of it are now going to be $300. And it's just like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What's the point of being a member of a club if it's $300 for a guest fee?
Yeah.
And I said this in another pod, but I think like one of the things that people miss, everybody thinks they can replicate the Kaisers and what they do. But like the Kaiser secret sauce, they build golf courses for cheaper than everybody. And then they maintain them for cheap. Like they like that's one of the beyond like finding the great land, hiring the right architects, having a great customer experience. The big thing they do is they keep their costs low. But like everybody else doesn't seem to understand that. And it's like, I don't know. It drives me insane. You hear people like wax poetic about their experience at Bandon Dunes. And it's like, those greens are like 10 or 9. People go to Scotland, Ireland, and it's incredible. It's like, well, how do we come back? And it's like, well, we need our greens 15, Well,
and you're right. It starts with the land and sand. Sand saves a lot of money. But here's a fun fact for you, because I went down a little rat hole for a piece I wrote on North Berwick. And I got confirmation of this. Guess how many and I'm not blaming the USGA green entirely for this rise in cost, but it is one of the costs, both creatively and financially, that we're seeing. Guess how many USGA greens Corin Crenshaw have built in their career?
I'm guessing like one course wanted them, maybe 18.
Zero.
None. Okay, I was thinking maybe one golf course demanded them.
They've done some California modified at a couple renovations like Riviera, but that's not how they work. They just dig out a hole and they dump sand that's been tested and whatever for agronomic purposes, it'll work. And they build, and creatively it's so much better. Just the tie-ins and the surrounds, the approaches and the beauty, and then cost-wise, that's a chunk of change. But some of the other stuff too, irrigation systems, and it's nuts. And like you say, it's a weird badge of honor, and not everybody's in agreement with that. A lot of people are rolling their eyes at what some clubs are spending, but it's essentially doubled in 10 years. That's just nuts.
10 years, like 3.
Yeah, it could even be less. I
feel like it's doubled in the last 5 years at least.
Yeah.
With that, the other thing that's happened, it's like this strive for perfection.
Yeah.
I remember years ago I had Stephen Britton on, great superintendent. And he talked about like, why do we want every green to be perfect? Isn't there like a beauty in if you play at a club and one of the greens sits in shade all morning? It sits in shade all morning. And because you understand the dynamics of your course, like the local knowledge of this green's going to be a little bit softer when I roll around to it, so it's going to spin a little bit more. Like these are all little things that make the game of golf beautiful. Like I remember as a kid playing my local muni, remembering like the little intricacies of this green versus this green. This green always just like the ball bounces a little bit more, so I need to land this a little bit shorter. Like that is all part of the joys of golf.
And one of the things, unfortunately, and I've had this chat with regard to major setups is and the tour too, how much they're all working to try to get every green the same. And like with LA North before the US Open, it's a big leap now for these organizations to treat a green differently than the others. And they have to write memos and post it and reveal it. And it's like, well, how about rewarding somebody who plays some practice rounds or gets a local caddy and figures it out? This has happened at Riviera every year. The 18th green sits higher than every other green on the course. It drains better. It dries out faster. It's firmer. And guys either take that into account or they don't. And the idea of trying to manipulate the conditions so that players don't have to figure it out is it's depressing. And then it gets expensive, obviously, when they get into it architecturally, where they're actually rebuilding stuff just to make them not have to think as much. And it's another reason why so few guys play a lot of practice rounds on golf courses now.
Rangefinders came out when I was in high school, but I remember early in my competitive young junior career, and this is probably you lived through this, but like if you were a really smart player, you were looking at where all the pins were on a golf course when you walked by.
Yep.
And it's just like you think about some of the like what made like a high IQ player was like, okay, I'm spotting where these hole locations are. Used to do it when I caddied too. It's like, okay, this one's like, it looks like about 4 yards back of center. Like it's kind of here, because you used to not know this stuff. And I think like some of the, like we love, I mean, like Jalen Brunson's a great example of the NBA player where he was a second round draft pick because people were worried about like, could he athletically hang in the NBA? Now he's one of the best players in the NBA because he's just a smart basketball player. And I think like one of the things that we're starting to lose a little bit in the game across the board, from club level up, from municipal level up, is the idea of golf IQ. And what, you know, when we don't ask people to have a higher IQ, it kind of like it removes an element of the game where you can differentiate yourself.
Yeah, and I don't know why the organizations, they still protect hole locations, although then you get those the night before now. But yeah, I don't know why they go to these efforts to do this stuff. Yeah, if a guy complains about that, then they kind of sound like an idiot. Plus, they have so many guys have such good caddies now doing great stuff. I mean, I love at the old course, you'll see somebody like, Joe LaCava out walking the course, with an afternoon tee time and going and walking the course in the morning. Or Greller did that, I think, in the year Spieth contended there. I mean, that kind of stuff I love. I mean, you're absolutely, there should be great reward for trying to outsmart the course, or at least just make sure you've covered all the bases and you don't get outsmarted by the setup. And it's just kind of this worrying about player reactions and meltdowns. I mean, and look, you bitch loud enough. Look at Matt Fitzpatrick got his way with the cracked driver thing this week.
Mm-hmm.
They announced another, modification, and it's like
keep bitching about it. Too.
Yeah. So and he was relentless about it, and so he got his way. And same thing with the golf ball distance debate stuff. So it's it's something I wish the majors would kind of get a little bit tougher on, and but I kind of fear they're going the other direction. So anyway, is that enough old man ranting?
Brendan, what's your
Brendan, you'd be way too quiet.
Bring a ray of light.
I said I was going to be sort of a stretch four standing in the corner, waiting for you guys to create this. I honestly, I don't know if I'm bringing the positivity. I come with no amount of arrogance with this take. It's more of a pondering, and it kind of doubles off what Geoff has said. I think it seems like we're in a boom era, right, of building, certainly compared to the preceding era. And a boom sort of follows that there's a demand, right? And so people want to create, people like this. There's a demand for this. Let's do more of this. I feel like there's been sort of a monotony. We're touching like a monotony level here in terms of, why is this created to add, the 6th or 8th or 14th course at a resort that is going to be a very expensive trip for people, or it's a course that a billionaire can fund himself, or a bunch of guys can chip off high 6 figures to make it their 3rd course or their 2nd course out of town. And I'm not saying this is bad or regrettable, but it seems to be getting monotonous in the purpose of why this boom is occurring, or why more golf courses are being built. Now, I won't pretend to be sophisticated enough on the design front to say that the builds are monotonous. They aren't, although I quipped internally recently, if you did a carousel on Instagram of all the recent courses built in the Southeast, what percentage of the consumer would be able to tell, let's just say, Pinehurst number 10 from Broom's Edge, from like now that's why the sophisticated player joins these places, because they like this restaurant and they can tell, whereas most restaurant goers cannot. I think, it does feel like, and not just to, butter up present company, like is a Rustic Canyon, which was built this century, like that kind of purpose built. Like I'm not suggesting there's land aplenty in urban areas or ex-urban areas, but the game is booming. Golf course building is booming. Is any kind of the golf course boom met the actual golf boom of the population. And even where I am in suburban DC, it's just so overcrowded and jammed. And if it's 50 miles outside of the city center, there's land, that is not being pursued. And so I feel a little bit of a monotony setting in. And it's not to say it's bad for the builders, but as a consumer, it feels sort of unattainable.
I think what you hit on ties perfectly with what Geoff talked about, because what Geoff mentioned, the cost, has made the model only work for big resorts and billionaires or multiple 100 millionaires, or, you know, a cohort of extraordinarily wealthy people. Like that's the only two that financially it makes sense to build a golf course right now, because like what Geoff's saying, it's $20-25 million, sometimes more, to build a golf course. With verticals, you're probably getting to 30 million. How do you possibly pay that back, make the investment work at an affordable dollar sum? Like, so if I do 100, you know, let's just back of the napkin math. Let's say I charge $100 for, and I do 40,000 rounds. That's $4 million in revenue. It costs me 1.52 million to maintain a year. Let's just say 2 for round numbers. So I have a 15-year, if everything goes great, a 15-year payback for the 30 million I put in. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. Yeah, this is certainly not totally a great explanation. This is not laying the blame at sort of the builder. It's just you hear about every new project, right? And it's always like, well, it's kind of more of filling that same purpose for why it's built. And so there's that sort of settling in, and that's not to say good for the design, the architect, go get it. This is what the work that's out there. But that's where I've gotten to, and it was awesome the last few years. And now it's just sort of setting in as a consumer from the other side, and it lives in a massive urban area, you know, with a giant population. How hard it is for some of this new work and this new demand to be to meet somewhere in the middle.
I think the shame too is that, like, the work, I would say, and I'm curious what Geoff thinks. I think like we're in this period where there's never been such a high standard of golf design being built, but it's built for so few, and it's built, and the cost of it is so high that it's impossible for it to be built right now for the masses.
Yeah, and also is probably a deterrent to renovating some places that would serve a lot of the purposes that Brendan's talking about. I mean, I'm same situation here in LA. You know, demand is crazy, but the public golf courses are generally run down, and the bones are there to have good stuff. But I mean, if somebody's going to look at freshening it up, and you're at $5-6 million before you really even get into the architecture, you're just whatever irrigation and you know, maintenance facility, whatever that is needed, which is, you know, usually the case with all these, before you even get to the fun stuff of just kind of more lively bunkers or some tree removal or bringing back some cool hazards or getting rid of crap that people added. That's what's depressing to me. And that's kind of where, you know, I think the USGA had an opportunity. I think they still have the opportunity, but to kind of bring together their expertise on the green section side, their name, their you know, I mean, the National Links Trust is great what they're trying to do, but the USGA is still the USGA, and and I mean, look at Bethpage. We're going to go there next year, and people still associate that with the USGA. They don't really associate it with Rees Jones or anybody else. It was bringing the U.S. Open there, and what David Fay and everybody did, the state of New York, and so that's what bums me out when you get into these dollar figures. Look, I have no problem with rich guys building places out in the middle of nowhere that are cool and great, but it's not trickling down, I guess, in a way that you'd hope. So we'll see.
I mean, like, I don't want to sit here and tell somebody how to spend money, but, you know, to me, if the USGA did a project every decade and they spent $20 to $30 million. That would be very well served funding, sources. And you think about like places that they could do this at. I mean, imagine Rancho Park revitalized.
Yeah.
And you have somebody like Gil revitalize Rancho Park. I mean, that place would be extraordinary. It would be an amazing, it already is an amazing community hub. I've frequented it so much in my mid-20s at 3 p.m. when my office in Chicago was shut down and I was living in LA. I would go over there and I'd play like 5 holes. It was the winter. I'd get 5 holes in 2 hours. But it was an amazing place. And it's like they have the little par 3 course. That place could just be one of the beacons of approachable golf in America, And it already is, but it's so run down.
It is. And the thing that we've seen in LA, for instance, that's really wild. And I still don't fully understand how it happened, and I'm not complaining, but somebody on the golf committee decided, we need better food at our courses. Like, yeah, well, you need better golf too, but okay. So then they farmed out the food and beverage to all these hipster foodie operations, and they're absolutely killing it. Now, Rancho, they found some asbestos, so it hasn't been finished yet. But when it is finished, the group they've already done this great little outdoor bar. They got a burrito thing, whatever. The indoor is going to be like a 50s cafe. I don't know when they're working again. Anyway, Penmar, dreadful golf course down in Venice. Nothing there. I mean, it's where people crash land planes from Santa Monica Airport, basically. Course is packed, though. It's green grass. It's a beautiful place. You get the sea breeze. But they've got this food and beverage operator that's got concerts, good food. They've got epic merchandise I don't want to talk too much about because there's some people who might come hunting for some copyright-related knockoff stuff. And so you look at that and you go, well... And I realized somebody on the golf committee would go, well, the courses are full right now. What do we need to replenish the stuff for? But it's like, well, why not aspire to match what's happening with the food and beverage with the golf experience? And like I occasionally go hit balls there and I just look, the balls are like pickle balls. They have no dimples. They're crap. Mats are crap. And I'm looking at kids come in. I'm like, I don't need a pyramid of Titleists and perfect grass, but come on, we're in the 21st century. We can do better. And it's, the good news is there are great examples, but again, like West Palm Beach, lovely story, but you just keep hearing this $55 million number. Like, well, how do you take that to other cities and places and that do have let's say a fund, which LA does right now of profits from the golf to put back, and they're going to, but then you don't have a lot of great examples to point to, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and that's where once a decade, like imagine if the USGA had been doing this since Bethpage. Bethpage was 90s, so you have the 90s as Bethpage. Say they did something
George
in the
Wright
2000s.
in Boston.
Yeah, Boston.
Something like that.
They did one in LA in the 2010s, and then they did one in, Chicago. I'm going to show my bias here, or
sure.
DC, and like at this point, we've got 5 great places or 4 great places of public golf that were all because of the USGA. Like it just seems like a no-brainer, and in the relative scheme of $1 billion organization, a small amount of money to allocate to the place where the most people pick up the game of golf.
And I think they get a lot of donations too, and that's something they seem to be very interested in. They're going about it with the national team program. That's
what we need.
That eludes me as to not necessarily trying to help out some promising players. And now there's a spot available with Blades Brown turning pro, but
it makes me think of. Do you remember
the concept eludes me because I don't quite get why a rich guy would want to fund that versus having their name, whatever, on the starter shack at a place where his $5 million helped replenish the golf course, something like that. Anyway.
Did you see? Or do you remember Seth Waugh's comment about how pro golf and golfers interact? How it has changed. How it used to be people watched on TV and that inspired them to go to the golf course, and how now it's very clear that less people are watching than ever, and more people are playing than ever, and it's like completely, and it's like almost like this national program is like the ideology of yesteryear.
Yeah.
You know, I'll do mine here. We're well on our pace to an hour and a half here. So my moment, I guess, of the year is one of the greatest players of the generation talking about golf course architecture, helping him become a better U.S. Open player. So here's Rory McIlroy. He was asked about, what's happened at the U.S. Open. Why has he started to play such great golf at the U.S. Open? No, I didn't. If you have a look at the U.S. Open that I did win in 11, it was more of a PGA Championship rather than a U.S. Open, typical U.S. Open setup. Tough scene for Congressional right there. I really don't think I embraced U.S. Open setups probably 10 years into my U.S. Open career. Played my first one in 09, and I think I really changed my mindset around them in 2019. That one in Pebble. And then since then I've started to enjoy this style of golf a lot more. It's a lot different than the golf we play week in, week out. I really appreciate that. And I've started to appreciate golf course architecture more and more as the years have went on. And I've started to read more about it and understand why golf course architects do certain things and design courses the way they do. Just becoming more of a student of the game again. And I think because of that, I've started to embrace golf courses like this and setups like this. I just think that's a great moment for golf architecture in a major championship to have Rory McIlroy saying, listen, I started to read about golf architecture. I'm paying more attention to golf architecture, and it's helping me play better at these really tough setups.
And it was, that's my top. The Pinehurst week was just a great week. And his performance and Bryson's performance and the way they managed the course, just the whole thing was special. And it's wonderful what he said. It's also incredibly depressing. It's like him, Tiger, and about 5 others that kind of get that big picture view. And he's really the only one that can say it and elaborate and really explain it well. But we'll take anybody who's interested in that. So it's and I think it's why he still has the energy to play. I mean, he's been at this a while now, and
yes.
And he has a lot of money. He's done well for himself, and a lot of guys who are in that situation that they hit a wall, and so it's pretty clear that's the thing that's motivating him and exciting him. And there's some great stuff coming in that sense for him. So I'm thrilled, and I was just thrilled. I think given the way Pinehurst went last time, the combination of whatever the look of the place, and they had a rough winter, and this time it was probably almost too green, but whatever. I'm not going to complain about that, but it was greened up, but they had to in some cases with certain greens had to be kept a certain way and holdable. To some of them are really, I don't even know what shots they hold, but so it was, that was a special event. Sometimes they come together, and that one, it was a big deal for that to go well for the USGA because they're coming right back. And I didn't see any sign really of the whole anchor thing and what that meant, other than I think Andy, you and I discussed it a while back. But Pinehurst showed they put the money in, they're investing, and that was cool. I didn't see much in the fan experience that spoke to, we're coming here a lot, but whatever. That's a small thing. So
I was looking at recently. I was looking at Google search traffic for golf courses.
Okay,
and it's unbelievable, absolutely incredible. If you look at Pinehurst and what a U.S. Open brings in terms of people searching Pinehurst. And and same thing happens for Pebble at the U.S. Open, and it's just a reminder of why these courses jumped and did backflips for the USGA in order to come there. And then you go to Pinehurst and it's like, oh, this place, it's just booked out every single day. It's just completely full. And, you know, it was a great tournament. But let's get to the events. Unless Brendan's got thoughts on Rory.
No, that's good. No, I think it makes sense.
Standing in the corner waiting for the ball.
I mean, what makes, quickly, why wouldn't you want to engage your brain? Why wouldn't you want their brain to match up with whatever athletic and God-given skill you had, right? And maybe because your God-given skill is too good, maybe because you don't need to engage your brain 50 weeks of the year, and maybe at the U.S. Open and the Masters, or you do, and you just don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I just think about I don't know, Luke Kuechly, right? Middle linebacker, right? They always talk about how he knew what the plays of the offense before that. So he was an all-pro on his athletic ability only. He's a Hall of Famer because he could match his brain up with that ability. And it makes sense. I don't know why people, more to Geoff's point, wouldn't do this, right? Why you wouldn't try to engage your brain more often with the architecture.
Andy, I mean, there's a danger in noticing too much and taking too much in. And that's why I always marvel at Tiger, Nicklaus, Ben Crenshaw, Geoff Ogilvy. I mean, if you talk to them or read what they say, they see a lot. They take in a lot, including where all the trouble is and where things can go wrong. And it's a very special gift. And Rory's, I think, now in that class too, of just taking in everything, every detail, but then being able to pull off the shot. And it's just a very, Bobby Jones too, another one who caught, every detail of a golf course, but somehow could just kind of put it all. So, I mean, Jack, used to look at stuff and get bored thinking how he'd redesign it just because it was so bad, but it didn't in fact impact his game. I think Geoff Ogilvy at times it might have impacted his game, bad setups or whatever. And I totally understand that, by the way, as somebody who was very guilty of that when he played in college, just getting caught up in stuff that you go, well, why did they do this? And why is there internal OB and that kind of thing? So yeah, it's another thing that's really impressive about Rory. And then also a select group of others who love golf architecture. Yeah.
I think that playing just the week in, week out tour for someone who is creative and thoughtful is really hard, because it's just such a, what's rewarded on tour is just mundane. This is how I go about my day in, day out. And I'm not saying that Scotty is necessarily mundane, but his process is so simple and so boring and so perfect for week in, week out PGA Tour golf. It is I do this. This is how I get ready. This is what I do every week. And I'm okay living this way.
Yeah, and I think that's been exposed at times on certain setups with at majors, and you see the patience that gets lost pretty quickly. It's stuff that, you probably don't see in a regular tour event, and it's probably very bad news for his peers that he actually has room to probably improve, yes. and appreciate sometimes that, I missed another birdie putt, but pars are good. I think Rory made a comment about that this year too, kind of realizing that was part of the genius of Tiger's at his prime, that he really, pars were pretty valuable, even in a changing game and 20 under winning sometimes. And in a major to appreciate those and to not get annoyed when you missed your 8th birdie putt of the day.
I think we should be worried that Scotty just learned what cryptocurrency was. Who knows what could happen now?
Yeah.
I don't know if he learned it. He had questions. He has it now. He's in possession of some, or whatever possession means. But
he can buy some guns and drugs and all sorts of great things. That's about all you can really do with crypto, right?
Now we're gonna get the crypto fans in our grill here. All right, let's get to number 5 in your top 5 events of the year. Brendan, are you supposed to go from 5 down or 1 up?
Let's go 1.
Well,
we're going US Open.
Away,
we just talked about Scotty being flummoxed with some
US Open.
Scotty flummoxed with the unpredictability. Rory's quote with the architecture. Rory talking about how you could take in too much. I think after the fact, sort of his post-mortem, I mean, he may be genuine in saying this, or he may just be kind of covering stuff up. I think he's genuine that he got too engaged with everything around him. He got too, and that was one of the great privileges and pleasures of being on the ground, was being able to sort of take in a lot of what was happening in those last two groups. And the tension, as I said, like was floating through the air almost from the prior tee up to the fairway and the green as these groups kind of went through the round. So yeah, that might be an instance where Rory was like, I wish I hadn't been too perceptive of what was happening behind me, of the shot that landed on the green as I stood on the 17th tee or whatever it may be. Clearly, in our year in review, you talked, I think, Andy, you said like the event of the decades, maybe a major of the decades. It was a really special one. We know what happened. I'll just put a bow on it saying, rarely do we like remember majors both for their failures and their triumphs. And I think like this highlight package, or this sort of these memories, will last for the Bryson bunker shot, certainly, and obviously for Rory's, shortcomings, failure at 16 and 18 specifically. And so it just had the whole package combined with the golf course.
Yeah, it's my vote, and it's just the whole thing, and I do wonder what's Pinehurst is going to be like in 5 years when they're all another few yards longer off the tee. It was already kind of will 18 be drivable? Where we're headed, but that part's kind of nuts. But we'll enjoy this one, and I was just thrilled. The other thing, just to get into architecture a little bit on Pinehurst, that was, I just love the way. Other than when they tried to make 13, I'm still not wild on 13 being forced as drivable. But I love that the 3rd, 7th, and 13th holes, which are basically a drive and a pitch, the 350 to 390 yardage range, which has kind of been a dying breed of hole with architects and with courses, that those were probably the 3 best holes out there. And they created all sorts of fun and excitement and variety, and they just played beautifully, and I guess even 13 drivable, other than the grandstand behind the green is a sort of a backstop thing, was but because long was good there, it wasn't that hard of a downhill chip. So anyway, but I loved how those holes played, and also just an incredible effort by the maintenance team to kind of get the native areas just right. We heard, I think you guys heard it too going in, and they done a bunch of plantings, and I was like, that could be bad, but it was great. And I know they were taking a bunch out right after the
Monday.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't think they were that bad, to be honest, at all, frankly. I thought the randomness was just perfect. It was just, you just didn't quite know what you were going to get. But look how many guys we saw hit recoveries. How few guys just had a sideway punch out. It was perfect.
Well, I would say that Brandel would disagree with you.
Shocking.
But the other thing I would say about that I heard in weeks after was that maybe just the lack of supply was the greatest thing that happened to the USGA. They bought every piece of wiregrass they could, and you couldn't buy it anywhere in the area because of the US Open. So might have been just that they ran out, and that was the perfect amount because there was not too much to buy. Nice.
Well, we'll never know, but good. Now there's plenty to buy, I assume, from what the superintendent said. So
one of the things I loved about that US Open was just the shots around the green. We saw just such a wide array of different shots. And I think one of the things that's neat about Pinehurst is the emphasis. It's kind of like Augusta National, where there is a uber high premium on tee to green play. But if you have the around the green play going, you can really separate yourself with some of the up and downs. And I think when you think back to that Sunday between Rory and Bryson, there were a lot of memorable, great shots that led to birdies, but the most memorable shots of the round were around the green, the up and downs, the saves that kept the momentum going. And I think that was like the thing about that golf course was it just was so taxing and so difficult to keep the train going forward. You know, those momentous par saves. And you think back to Bryson, where he was able to do it on 8, on 14 was an extraordinary up and down save.
Yeah.
And then of course on 18.
Yeah.
And you know, those 3 saves, and you think about Rory, where he gets the, you know, tough break, maybe not perfectly executed shot on 5, but then on 6, 7, he makes these up and downs that kind of keep the round together, where it could have spiraled out of control. Even the up and down on 17 after that miss on 16, where it looked like, you know, it gave him the chance on 18 to be there. I think like the premium I appreciated about it was like it really felt like a all around test where if you drove it well, you were getting rewarded. Iron play really rewarded, and then the short game had a huge emphasis. So that's one of the things I appreciated so much about it.
And last thing on that, you know, people seize on Rory's putt on 18, but it was the chip that was the mistake. He just left himself the one putt as a right-hander you really don't want. And Bryson's bunker shot, I mean, he kept it below the hole. He was just I don't know what he was trying to do, but he tried not to hit it on the clubhouse roof, which was very doable if you caught a little too much ball, but he kept it below the hole. And I think that's kind of why, Rory snapped a little at when he saw what the coverage said, which they just blew it. I mean, NBC just completely blew it. Johnny Miller would have been immediately all over. I can't believe he just left himself that putt. You don't know. You can't believe how hard that putt is. And they were like, oh, yeah. I went back and watched it. Like, oh, yeah, okay, well, he's, they just completely, and their tower was right there. I mean, it was just a whiff. And I'm not saying they're to blame for the missed putt. It just, to your point, Andy, it was the short game element. I felt like you're right. It was compared to Augusta, let's say. You could, I mean, there are hard chip shots and there aren't many bump and runs left at Pinehurst, but you did see some really cool stuff that held rounds together or sparked a comeback. And I feel like at Augusta, it's getting to where when you miss greens, it's more of just trying to manage and not make double and just kind of, get it on and maybe you make the par putt kind of thing. They've taken some of the skill out, I think, some of the work around the greens there and the way they maintain the turf. So anyway, that's a whole other rat hole.
All right, should we move on to number 2?
Yeah.
Any other parting thoughts on Pinehurst?
Nope.
All right, number 2. What do you got, BP?
Number 2 for memorable or favorite, I'm going to say the men's Olympic competition. This was kind of Scotty Scheffler, maybe at his peak. I mean, it's his best quote unquote best final round of his career, 62 course record, 9 under. Just sort of as an event, it's certainly not architectural. Separate out the golf course design. Le Golf National, though, we've become as accustomed with that place as Augusta National, it feels like in the last 4 or 5 years. But yeah, it's like the best player in the world in full flight, a 9 under, 62. I think he started at he's 4 shots back, 6 shots starting on the back 9. I think he birdied those last 5. He hit that on 18. It was not birdied his last. He had 5 on the back 9. That on 18, he like gouged that 8 iron, like we thought had no chance from that Le Golf National rough. Maybe not the Ryder Cup version, but still it's rough. Onto the green and made the birdie putt to close it out. So it was like Scheffler, the top in the world. He was 6 back at one point. There was John Rahm's collapse. We had the element of live players together, or some of them together. John Rahm really collapsing down the stretch and talking about the pain of like, I let my country down. He said, by losing today, I have a much deeper appreciation of what this tournament means to me than if I had won any medal. But you wouldn't hear that very often. He appreciates it almost more than had I won. So you had the Rahm claps, you had the Rory, in the
Rory Sunday run.
Still in the aftermath of Pinehurst, kind of, early August. And I think he opened his back 9 with 5 birdies. It was still a Hail Mary chance, but he got in the mix there, 5 birdies in a row on the back 9 and then hit it in the water. And that was that. You had Tom Kim going for a medal stand and all that brings with the military service. You had Victor Perez, the net home favorite, missing the medal stand by a shot. And then you had Fleetwood. Hideki had 5 birdie chances in a row coming down the stretch. He gets a medal. Fleetwood gets a medal. It was just, I kind of had it all in terms of the gold chase, and then also the stakes below that on a Sunday that featured the best in the world going his absolute best down the stretch. So I don't know if that's not number 2, but it's up there for the summer.
Yeah.
Well, he just gave it your number 2.
You made a good. You made a great case.
Yeah.
Geoff, what do you got?
I'm gonna go over to St. Andrews in the Women's Open.
All right, this is my number 3. So
that was your 3. Okay, good.
Yeah,
well, then you can pick up off of that. I just did. The weather was pitiful, but it was fun seeing the old course play well. It was fun seeing stuff that you don't see in the Men's Open there. Just whatever, long irons into the road hole green and holding the green. Some of the strategy stuff that we wax on about actually happening, seeing the holes not stuck on top of old ant hills in the greens, and some of the stuff they do to protect par in the Men's Open or the regular Open. But Lydia Ko down the stretch, just that weather was just so awful, and what she did, and Nelly played so beautifully, but just two strange, shocking double bogeys. Hits it out on Saturday on 16 with the wind from the west, which is really hard to do when you have the whole world to the left, and then the double on Sunday on the 14th when she was up by the green in 2 shots and in a really good spot, and otherwise played pretty much flawlessly. Just a lot of clutch final rounds. And to your point, Brendan, on the Olympic 62, and I had meant to go back and look at this year, and I haven't done it yet. Seems like there have been a lot of incredible final rounds this year. Just incredible final rounds. And I don't know how you quantify or compare that with past years, but it just feels like we had a lot of people play clutch golf the last day instead of people just kind of hanging on to win. And that's been great. And obviously Lydia Ko doing that on Sunday. I forgot what she shot. She didn't go super low, but the weather was
the weather was insane on that back nine.
Yeah,
it was nuts. It was. I thought she had to drive her off the deck on 17. I think also it was this great Nelly year, and Nelly, there was a cadence to the year, and then you had this Lydia Ko part of the year, and I think everybody likes to talk about who's going to be the next big thing in women's golf, and a lot of times we forget how big of a thing Lydia Ko has been in terms of incredible career arc. I think extremely relatable career arc in the sense of sensation, awesome early career. I personally am drawn to career arcs that have struggle in them. Had some years where it didn't go well, lots of changes, poor play, and then to have her win at the old course, after the Olympics, obviously getting the Olympic medal and this, and just I don't know how many more years of Lydia Ko we have, which is one of the sad things about the women's game. Not sad, but it is you kind of one day you just lose these stars, and unlike men's golf where you'll see Rory play into his early 40s and who knows how long, and you see Tiger still playing in his 50s. I don't know how many more great years of Lydia Ko we had, but we got a really great year of Lydia Ko that matched up with a great Nelly year. And this was them showing a showdown between kind of the two of them, with other great players, Lilia Vu, Ronnie Yin, two.
Yeah, it was a great leaderboard.
You got 4 top 5 players on the leaderboard duking it out at the old course, hitting, as you said, shots that we don't see the men hit, and was really, really fun.
I would just, we think of Lydia Ko as this incredible career, and it is all that. But her majors, it had been 8 years, and her majors were the ANA Inspiration, now known as the Chevron Carlton Woods, and the Evian. And it had been 8 years, similar to that Rory length at Pinehurst. And so I think a women's open at an old course felt befitting of the totality of the career, right? And it had been a while. So on top of the visuals of hitting lumber, just on top of the road hole bunker and having Korda. And I'll add this, like, I get a lot of pushback from, I guess, PGA Tour or network sort of people who have been entrenched there too long. The venues like don't really matter. But like to add to this with Pebble Beach, even if it's a lower amateur event, a women's event, they can elevate it. Like you have to have both the diehard golf fan invested in some reason, right? And whether it's the old course that brings them to the table to then go evangelize it you're not going to get the person, the casual, unless the people who love golf are already in the boat. And so I just feel like the old course brings an element, obviously, and elevates the women, elevates an amateur event. Same with Pebble Beach the year before. Why not? So often in women's golf, it's this Frankenstein where we bolt on the sponsor to the time of year, to the market that will have us, and then we choose the course. And why not try? And it clearly elevated this championship. It's undeniable.
On that thought, I was contemplating getting Lancaster in this top 5, and it was like, it's like an example. It's like, that's not the world's greatest golf course. That's not the old course, but it just shows what a really good golf course does for a tournament. And it also showed I think the potential that the women's game has. If they just visit really good golf courses, they could visit a Lancaster level golf course, I think, almost every single week on their calendar. And that should be the thing that's zeroed in on, is like, we're going to go visit the golf courses that that men can't visit anymore, that are great golf courses. My number 2 is absolutely on the Venues Matter list of golf events. It was impossible. Geoff brought up our friends at NBC. It was almost impossible to watch this event. It was like being teleported back to 1995 on my couch as a kid watching European Tour golf. It's the Irish Open at Royal County Down.
Yeah.
I was wondering where you're going. Now I remember. Yeah.
It was extraordinary golf tournament. Another Rory McIlroy heartbreak down the stretch. And it was, but the golf shots, the mystique of Royal County Down, the visuals, even without any bells and whistles, just with ground cameras that struggled to track the balls. No golf course commentary whatsoever about what makes this place, an out of the sublime test. But you saw just, the degree of difficulty, the level of shot making that was required on that golf course was just at a different level than your week in, week out tour stop. And it led to this unbelievable finish, a really good leaderboard given the field, with Rory, Rasmus Højgaard, Brendan's favorite, Matteo Manacero, who was in a resurgent period of his career, because they went the next week to Wentworth, and it was, Matteo and Rory again and in the final groups. But this was a extraordinary golf event that I will not forget. And again, venues really matter. That event should have had all the best players in the world, and the full treatment of telecast.
And then they go to the K Club next year. So
yeah.
Why was it relegated mid-September? It's not like we're just overflowing with golf and we're relegating it to streaming here and there and wherever you can find it.
You had to go to NBC Sports app.
Right.
It wasn't even on Peacock.
Right.
It speaks to your earlier quote about the Rory quote, right? I mean, engaged with the architecture and certainly bringing out a little bit more of him. He's great everywhere, but
that's a golf course that I think historically he had fits with.
Right. Different era of his. Yeah.
Well,
No, that was a great one.
Did he miss Did he miss the cut the last time it was there?
I think so.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. It was spectacular, and you're right. It was a shame that relegated to September, and I mean, I just don't know how we don't have a links season, a permanent run of the Scottish and the Irish and the Open.
Do we want to opine about why we don't have a links season?
Oh well,
because players don't want to leave America for 4 weeks.
Yeah, and that's possibly a bigger part of it now. It used to be, it wasn't that long ago, guys were in this kind of, well, I can't, 3 weeks of that will screw up my swing kind of thing. And I don't hear that as much now. I think with TrackMan and different stuff, a guy doesn't want to believe that would happen. And but yeah, it's probably just time away from the US. So maybe when the PIF buys the European tour, they can establish a link season or something. I'm sure, or
what a rosy
maybe
outlook.
mix in Royal Greens, so yeah.
Well, they're going to build all the great links courses of Saudi Arabia by then
at Neom, right? Which
Just
is going to host
today, no alcohol at the 2034 World Cup. I'm sure that'll go over well when they're hosting the World
great.
Cup. So
getting out ahead of it, are they? That's not going to help ticket sales. Oh, Jesus, unbelievable. Well, how about we get some stadiums built, and then we decide what the alcohol policy will be. It
is remarkable. Like, some of the blame goes to the DP World Tour, right? And I understand they're hamstrung. It's like what I just talked about, the sponsors wagging the dog, and all this stuff. But you kind of have to put your foot in the ground and try to put the product first and not relegate such a quote unquote event of your season, essentially, in terms of golf fans, to mid-September. So
and the Scottish at Renaissance has kind of run its course, and they're lovely people, and it's it's certainly better than Loch Lomond to prepare for the Open, but it's also time to probably get back to the little rota they had. I know that's more work from the infrastructure side, but they just have so many great places, and the Scottish Opens at Gullen were so good, and Castle Stewart were great, and so and they need to finish on Saturday so that the get out of the way of the Wimbledon final and all that stuff. Right. But anyway, that's other stuff.
All right, let's take a quick break. We are humming in Club TFE. I think it's a great membership. We produce a lot of content in there. Right now, we're in kind of our event swing. We give members early access to events. An event that we just launched was the Sand Valley trip that sold out just for Club TFE members. So if you're interested in coming to our events, Club TFE is a great way to make sure you get into the events that you want. Also, from a content side, we are humming in there with a lot of writing about golf courses, golf architecture, and I'm really excited. We've got some big plans in 2025 for it. So if you like what we do, if you haven't joined and become a member, consider it in the new year. It is $120 for the year. Go to thefriedegg.com/membership to learn more. Thanks. Let's get back to Geoff and Brendan.
All right, who's up? Who's up next, Andy?
I
had Women's Open 3, which we've already hit on. I'm going to zag here. I don't know if I understood the assignment. So I said 5 memorable. I don't know if that's all my favorite.
Perfect. I like to be very loose with my
he was vague.
One of my favorite could mean a lot of things. One of my honorable mentions was the Phoenix Open, just because we finally found the bottom and it's provoked change. Like we've gotten so bad. Like we had to get so bad. Well, I mean, apparently we're zero tolerance policy for the next Phoenix Open. We finally got so that one I can appreciate that we at least reached the bottom to say all right, this is too much. But the next one, in a similar vein, one of my favorite events, the Travelers Championship.
Wow.
The week after the U.S. Open, number 1 on this list. I think we sort of, the mask came off. We were layered bare. Rory WDs. Well, of course he WDs. Like the signature event we're supposed to hold. Of course he's not playing the freaking Travelers Championship the week after this had just happened, or days after this had just happened.
I want to also historically note that this is the year they wanted to debut their millions of dollars of changes to the golf course to increase the difficulty of it.
This is why it made my list. It's on. So we add new tee boxes, more mounding, shrinking the 11th green, cutting the 12th fairway off at landing distance, just stopping the fairway. All right, let's do something different. Replacing it with rough, more trees, narrowing a bunch more fairways, millions of dollars after they went 22 under last year, or 23 under last year. The winning score was 22 under this year. Rory had called it obsolete. Like, I'm sorry, in 23, it's just obsolete. Technology has rendered the golf course obsolete. Not that it was, the old course or Royal County Down or Pinehurst before that. But
it had something.
Yes. So there was a 59. Cam Young had his 59. There were two 61 on Sunday. There were 7 62s shot throughout the week. This is millions and millions. 7 62s, 59, multiple 61s, 22 under. And look, it's a signature event. The field was smaller. Scoring average was essentially the same as the prior year. And this was millions of dollars spent to make it, quote unquote, harder or toughen it up for essentially 1 week. And then it's added, we get this protest at the end. You got paint flying everywhere. It's just a memorable, goofy event for a lot of different reasons. And then you backed it up. I'll stop my soliloquy here with John Deere a week later, or 2 weeks later, Hayden Springer breaking 60. And it's just so clear. The Tournament Players Club or course, these courses that were built to test the actual best in the world are no longer relevant, are no longer they're pillow fights.
You got TPC Sod Farm still. You got Minnesota. That's 20 under. That's a bigger test than Valhalla.
So, anyways, that's why it made my list. How there was the Rory, like, of course he's not playing. This is the real world. That we can dress these up as signature designated. Of course he's not, and then the course changes. And then a little protest to end it off. I got asked to go on local radio here on Monday. And I was like, now, granted, it's not in the middle of the football season, but I only do one radio station. Buddy hosts the main radio station in town. I was like, wait, what? Why? I expected after the U.S. Open or the MAP, like the protest made it a larger sports radio subject. So, yeah, the Travelers hit this year for a number of reasons.
Wow.
Good and bad. So,
do you want to mention who won?
Scotty Scheffler won. He dominated. He went.
I don't think he did. I just want to make sure we actually acknowledge the winner.
He got back to the confines of bluegrass rough. Got away from the wiregrass. Got to the confines of bluegrass rough, and everything clicked.
So yes, that was a memorable-ish week for both architecture reasons.
Look at you're all red. You're all worked up. Love it. Got the juices flowing.
There we go. Travelers Championship.
It is an incredible. They're going to do the same thing with TPC Craig Ranch this year. Yeah. They're spending, $15 million with Lanny Watkins?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to end up being the exact same thing. The scores are going to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Right. Scoring average, I think, was
actually
lower.
Might get better because the course will be probably in really great shape. They'll have all the new bells and whistles, and you give these guys greens that hold and good conditioning. It just takes 8,500 yards and freakish stuff to prevent them from shooting low scores at this point. So, like, why bother? All
right, you got number 3. What's your number 3?
I'm going to bring a more civilized selection after the Travelers ranting. I go with the Curtis Cup at Sunningdale.
All right, this is a good choice here.
Well, we've been overdue for a really good close cup event that could go either way right to the very end. We don't get many of those. Solheim was kind of close, but
the President's Cup didn't make your list.
It did not. It did not make my top 20, 5. So and I stopped at 20. It just was spectacular. In a weird way, the minimalist television coverage was kind of it just fit. It worked. I mean, I could have, it would have been nice to have some other stuff, but no tracer but it was clean and solid and there was too much talking from one of the on-course reporters. But other than that, it was a great event and just brilliant play, clutch play, asterisk tally, just whipping Lottie Woad on Sunday, 3-2, who was just playing great, best amateur in the world, blah, blah, blah. 15-year-old just drums her, eagles the 10th. They had a great drivable hole. Setup was perfect. Course was magnificent. The captains were great, classy. Gave all the credit to the players. It was a 1-point win for GBNI. Catriona Matthew, it was all the players. None of her, analytics and none of the other hilarious stuff that we get in events. It was just Sarah Byrne was incredible. She went undefeated. Then we had a little testiness there with Megan Schofield.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Getting a little annoyed at not being given a putt.
Yeah.
So it had a little bit of everything, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the people out in the walking the course, the dogs, just the whole thing.
It's a great event. It's more
it's going to be great at Bel Air. It should be spectacular. They'll have the clubhouse open even by then, so it should be great.
I think it's open now, right?
Yes, it's open. Yeah, finally.
Nobu,
I talked to a member the other day. The Nobu trained chefs are just bringing the heat with the great. I said, "Can you get a burger though?" Yes, you can still get a burger. I go, okay, good.
I might have to go down there this winter. Just to see the
it's never going to rain down here, so you should come down. We're in a drought. You're getting all the rain up there, and
it's dumping up here.
It's going to be 80 here today in LA. So come on down and check it out.
All right, my number 4 is
wait, did you do 3?
Well, 3 is Women's Open.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna go with Canadian Open. I just love the story. Bobby Mack.
I don't even remember who won.
Bobby Mack wins with his dad with his dad on his bag.
Yeah.
Overcoming
the drones.
Yeah, yes. Overcoming the drones. But he wins with his dad on the bag. I feel like anybody that grows up playing golf with their dad, this is just a dream scenario, right? The dad
get all sentimental on this one, really?
Yeah,
Bobby Mack?
Bobby Mack wins with his dad on the golf bag. Like anybody that
and then he fired him.
He only it was one loop, and then my favorite part about it. He
brought him back though, didn't he? Didn't he come back for something?
So. Okay. I don't think he did.
I thought he came back for something later in the year. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
My favorite, maybe he should come back for the Ryder Cup next year. Give Bobby Mack a little bit more juice in that event. My favorite part about it is he wins, and then he bypasses the big payday at Memorial and goes home to Oban and drinks a bunch of pints and has a good celebration there, and then comes back for the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
So this is just this is a sentimental pick. I think like winning a golf tournament with your father on the bag is just, that's about as good as it can get for anybody that's pursued golf.
A couple good, meaningful wins for him. Obviously winning the Scottish, which he said he cared more about than, anything other than, I think, the Open. I think even more than the other majors besides the Open.
Yeah.
And then with your dad, doesn't get much better than that for him there in a month. So aside from the drone interference.
Yeah, he's got to deal with that. I mean, he's just got to get over that.
Well, Rahm had
didn't he lose it again at Wentworth?
Too. Yeah.
Who did?
Rahm had trouble at Liv.
Oh, right. Yeah. They're not that loud. I don't understand it. And it's not like they're in the middle of the night and, they're not seeing Orion up there. It's like, Jesus, just deal with it. It's what's weird about it is it's a consistent noise. Because they were getting a little aggressive at Valhalla with one, and guys were looking at it. I'm like, well, but it's not like it's going up and down and making, accelerating. And that's what usually pro golfers just tell you, as long as it's just sort of steady and it's not going to change, it doesn't bother me. But it's when they kind of fluctuate that's, and understandably, you don't want that. You don't want to be surprised. But Bobby seems to have the new Monty rabbit ears going. So
pro golfers
Fellow
find
Scott.
a way. They find a way, whether it's a drone
Nice
or
choice. Nice
too many
choice.
steps. Yeah, that's a good
All right.
thing.
Who's got number 4? You
Jeff.
guys both have number 4s, right?
I'm already on 4. Yeah, Jeff's got to hit.
Well,
what was your
his.
4? What was your 4 was your 3 was the Open, 4 was the Travelers.
Yeah, no, U.S. Open, men's golf, Olympics, women's Open, Travelers, 4. So there you go. Jeff's on
4.
All right, I'm going to go with the Open at Troon. I just thought
this
it was
my 5.
Okay, it was a great week. Tough week. Course really was weird. The way the wind direction just changed a lot, and it just was brutal on Friday afternoon. I mean, the late wave had no chance. And the postage stamp played beautifully. The whole course just played really well, given the non-traditional wind most of the time. And some places don't perform as well when that happens. And so, I mean, some of the stuff the guys did on Saturday when it was so cold and nasty. And then Xander 65 on Sunday, and Justin Rose and Billy Ho giving him, they kept him honest. And it was, I thought it wasn't, the most thrilling final round, but it was just great golf, and Xander did some brilliant stuff down the stretch. It was interesting. He didn't really pay much attention to the leaderboard until about 14, and that little up and down on 16, even though it was looking pretty good for him, that was very chunkable into the bunker, or it was just not an easy shot. And Rose was hanging in there and reached the green at 2, and he just kind of put him away with that. And thought the setup was great. The fan experience seemed to be pretty good. There were a few things, but a lot of people. So I just thought it was a classic, great Open, and kind of kept the whole Americans at Troon thing going, which is a pretty wild situation, how well U.S. players do well there. So just a great, solid week, and another good Open.
I think the thing that I loved the most about it is the idea of, like, you have this tournament that anybody can win, and then the best player of the group of anybody can win, reaches the hardest part of the golf course, the 11th hole, the railway hole, and just hits the gas pedal, and and he was just gone, and nobody was going to be able to keep it. It was just like it was like when you watch like a horse race, and it's close, and you get to turn 3, and then the best horse in the race just hits a level that nobody else can touch. And to me, like, golf tournaments that unfold that way, like, everybody loves their underdog story, but like a lot of times, like, the joy of watching sports is to watch the sublime athletes and performers touch levels that you sit back and you say, you know what, he's better than those guys. And I think that was like a moment with Xander where it's just like, wow, this guy is, one of the 4 best players in the world. And I think, the PGA win at Valhalla was great and all, but that was like kind of one of those tournaments that anybody in the top 4 or 5 could have won. It was a total crapshoot. Who made a putt at, the right moment was that. This was, I'm better than you, and I'm putting this tournament away. And I really appreciated that. Also, I'll never forget Scotty Scheffler on the 18th hole hitting that like chunk iron into the silly sand scrape.
It was crazy. It was just crazy.
I think it'll be the worst shot we ever see Scotty Scheffler hit.
Oh yeah. Unreal.
Not supposed to be in play. That's Sanskrit there. And he brought it into play. Scotty did.
Also, I think like Scotty, it seemed like he had solved the putter, and then he gets on these slow greens and windy greens. It seemed like a real issue. It looked like the old issue, and it made me also think like, it seems like when he has to hit the putt, it's a lot harder, than when it's just like, if I just touch this and get it online, it goes in, which is the PGA Tour speed,
Yeah, and that's why slow greens generally expose putting, and they highlight people with a good stroke because you do have to. You're not just starting the ball. They are tricky greens to read, but I thought he really let them get to his head. It was. I think that was about as cranky as he was all year. It seemed like in terms of barking back at Ted Scott and stuff. One other thing that's about Xander, I just, the contrast in styles between that and Valhalla, to win on those two golf courses is just, just the complete opposite in terms of firmness and stuff you need to do around the greens. And that's just, that's impressive. And
so he turns at 5. Rose is at 6. Thurston is at 7 and Billy's at 5. The 11th he birdies to get to 6. At that point, he's 1 behind Thurston. Pars the 12th, birdies the 13th, gets to 7. Birdies the 14th to get to 8. Pars 15, birdies 16 to get to 9. And it's over.
It was over. Yeah.
What do you got, BP?
I mean, I had the Open Championship, just for all the reasons you've stated, as number 5, for all the uncomfortableness that it brings and the unique, the win, what we thought would be sort of the win, guys who shape it one way, really challenging them, right? Coming back. Nobody wants that ball being blown away on a left to right, and it kind of flipped on them there. And then having guys being unable to reach par 4s and 2 was a unique wrinkle on Saturday when it got really cold and windy coming down the stretch, and obviously left Shane Lowry extra grumpy. But yeah, it was a pleasure to watch. Like firmly entrenched Troon. I don't know if our generation really remembers Troon as much as it should, and I think this was really a refresher for people our age. I had the players close by, though, too. Another Scott. I realized I was going really Scotty predominant here between the Olympics and the Travelers is a little bit of a wrinkle. But the players was a great championship, right? Wyndham Clark, at the time, the number 2 player, kind of on tour. Scotty, the number 1 player. Scotty having a neck injury, still shooting a 64. Kind of that was and showing it on a different kind of test and going first person go back to back at the players. That was a great championship. But when you think about it, I was thinking about it this week, of all the tour properties or tour positions that have been weakened by the arrival of LIV, it feels like the players has been the most sort of delegitimized as whatever it claimed to once be, right? Scotty's winning without John Rahm in the field and without Brooks and without Bryson. That feels decidedly unmajor-ish or major adjacent, which is what they kind of, it's really weakened that. LIV is really weakened their position. But it was a great championship when we kind of needed after a stinker of a sort of first quarter of the year on the tour.
Well, so. And how about, I thought it didn't get much play, but the Ryder Cup points come out and the players is being treated just like any tour event. Last year's players is not. So that's why Brian Harman has a slight chance to make the team at the moment. But this coming players is just going to be like the Honda or anything else points wise. I was shocked that they didn't keep that, the 1.5, the major system in for the players. That was kind of a sad admission that it is not what it used to be. Without those guys? What's
your number 5?
I have to get off the architecture bus now and go with Valhalla. It was, the place your review was spectacular, by the way, if people haven't heard it, but on the Shotgun Start, your review of it's just unbelievable how whenever they go there, stuff happens.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were a couple of things that weren't attractive, somebody dying and Scotty's driving, but the stuff that went on early in the week, Jimmy Dunn dropping that letter and the Rory's divorce coming out and just all the stuff that went on, it goes on there. And then, the finish was spectacular. The course I was, I don't know why I keep falling for this when places go to Zoysia grass and they go, oh, it's going to be better. It'll be firmer. It's like, I don't know why I fall for that every time. It's not, it's Kikuyu light. It even if it had not rained, I just didn't see that, leading into the tournament. I just didn't see that place playing firmer and faster. It was in great shape. Don't get me wrong. Superintendent is a beautiful job, and they brought it together really well, given some of the stuff that happened. But yeah, it's amazing how that golf course just seems to produce exciting stuff. One funny thing that happened. So Xander opens with his 62, which you again recounted on the shotgun start. But one thing you didn't know or see, I don't think. So the PGA has got this kind of messed up press conference thing, which again is not their fault. This is trying to keep the players happy. So they have this, kind of sitting, standing, weird thing, and we all stand, and there's really only that. There's no other secondary areas. And so Xander shoots the lowest score in the history of the PGA Championship. And the guy who runs the press conference is Greg, nice guy. He's got a little clock. They like to have a little stopwatch, like see, if something's going on too long, he can kind of go, well, we went 10 minutes and enough. But anyway, so the clock is running and Xander's just starting to talk about this historic round. And it's at like 4.5, and I'm standing behind him, and I can see it. And here comes Tiger, and Tiger just walks and opens the door. And Xander kind of looks, and it's like, okay, well, I guess we're done. So the lowest round in the history of the PGA at that point, Xander got 4 minutes to barely, and we're all just like, we're not. That's it. But Tiger runs the show, and there's no other place to talk to him because they're so determined to keep press from intermingling with players somewhere other than this stage. And it was just kind of chintzy and weird. And so, yeah, but Louisville, great golf town, great fans. Just was, it just did it again. I don't want him to go back there, but
Solheim, right? Solheim Cup.
Solheim next. And then I think a PGA will be going back there.
Really?
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. That I think the ownership wants another one.
Man.
I know. I'm sorry to end on such a somber note.
It was an eventful week.
But come on, you're content creators. You're not creators,
yes, right,
council level content creators. But
that's right. We are.
Come on, it's
You're
a
not
content
either.
generation.
Were you surprised
machine.
you were left off the creator console?
I would have brought. I'd make those meetings lively if they had me, but I'm quite pleased to not be a part of that.
Well, I think Andy introduced you as the CEO of Quadrilateral. I think you can make a lateral move to this new CEO position they created at the
there's
time.
another CEO job, that's available now. So, and who wouldn't want that job after that rollout video? So
that's true.
Well, we're just spitballing here.
Not to go off. Well, what the hell was that?
Okay, here we go. I can tell you're holding it in.
I just want to know because it just what was that?
Nobody knows.
I don't think anybody knows what it was.
Who are they trying to lure? Like I just don't. And then the commissioner is going to report to this. What a mess. Anyway, and of course the PGA doesn't even have a CEO. So go ahead.
Last question, and we're done with this. We're right at the 1.5 hour mark.
What's your final
event now? Right now, event you're most looking forward to in 2025.
Good
question. Didn't tell you to prep on this.
I mean, can I just go ahead? Jeff.
Well, this is an easy one because I've surveyed my fine subscribers, and they've come back with a pretty
the quad listens too.
The quad folks are excited about Portrush and the Open. I have to give a slight edge, although we'll see what happens. But to Cypress Point in the Walker Cup. I mean, I don't know who the hell's going to be playing for these teams. It's going to be like a bunch of 16 and 17-year-olds, but
Blades is gone.
Blades is gone. I don't see Luke Clanton making a amateur status to September. I just don't. I don't feel like that's going to happen. It would be great, but it just doesn't seem likely. But it doesn't matter. It's Cypress Point. I wish the captains would designate a 2028 conforming golf ball be used, but I don't think that's going to happen. But either way, and who knows what Golf Channel will do with it. But hopefully they'll get enough people out there, and it'll be a good event or a great event. It's just there's nothing quite like it. But other than that, obviously Portrush and would be second for me, and maybe Oakmont. I'm curious where they're going to hit drives at Oakmont, but my readers overwhelmingly picked Portrush.
I took that survey. I was a respondent in that survey.
Thank you. Yes, you had a nice turnout.
Yeah,
I meant
went
to respond.
You still have time. The polls close in about 6 hours, and then I'm going to wrap it up tonight with a whole look at the votes. You got time.
Stuff the ballot.
Yeah, well, there's a tight race for Organization of the Year. So the folks at the RNA and Augusta National are probably will be closely monitoring that vote.
I thought you were going to say
PGA Tour's not winning?
They were not an option on Organization of the
You should
year.
have put it in
We only do
there.
the majors.
You should have put it in there just for fun. See if they garnered any votes.
No. So what do you got?
I mean, it was similar order. I think, like you said, who knows what the networks will do? Who knows how much evangelizing we'll be able to, or accessibility of viewing will be able to be consumed next year, September. But I think that's kind of a similar order. Portrush, certainly for me, having gone there in the intervening year as well, is very, very high on the list. And we got a Senior Open. I know PJ, that will be of note of him at Sunningdale. The Senior Open is going to Sunningdale.
Oh, that's right. They're at
the
Sunningdale.
Old timers get to kind of hit it
we
around
might have
Sunningdale.
to send PJ to Sunningdale.
Yeah,
we could send them to just Firestone maybe for the Call-It company.
Do you think we could get Sunningdale to have a life or a dinosaur-sized inflatable colon? Do you think we could get that at Sun? That really fits with Sunningdale's vibe, doesn't it?
Would blend in well there in the heat. Yeah.
I still can't believe
my
that.
favorite thing about PJ.
I think it's the most unbelievable thing I saw all year. That actually. Anyway, it's just unbelievable.
My favorite thing about PJ is on these, he can't talk on these. You see him.
We've entertained him at least.
You see him just kind of spacing out, and then anytime the Champions Tour gets brought up, it's just like he just perks up. He sits up in his chair. I think I'm in a very similar sentiment. I will just for difference in opinion, I'll say the Portrush will be mine.
Yeah. Augusta's going to be interesting, but kind of sad, I think, because I've gotten some reports that it's a pretty significant tree loss in ways that aren't great. So we'll see, but it's going to be interesting. But it's not one that's fun to talk about. I think more interesting on a fun way is like, what are guys going to do at Oakmont? Because to our earlier conversation, it is we talk about architecture. The one thing that blows my mind with players today is the stuff that they come up with on trying to come to play an alternate route on a hole, and stuff I would just never think of and see and go, are you kidding? Like number 9 at Augusta playing down 1, like the launch angle to get that tee shot over the tree. Anyway, how they come up with some of that stuff in Oakmont is just going to be, it's going to be dreamy for them to figure out how they could just not play down the hole they're supposed to play.
Could be lots of in course out of bounds.
It could happen. That could be one. I might throw a six man vote in for just an extra one, maybe for the Wells Fargo moving up to Philly Cricket. See what the big boys can do there too, as well, like they might at Oakmont, all through Pennsylvania, bash it around some of those older courses. So 6-man option for next year.
Could be some interesting weather in May there too.
Yeah, you could say that.
Weather is always a key ingredient to memorable golf. All right, that does it. Thank you, Geoff. Everybody go check out the Quadrilateral. Like we just talked about, your voice is heard there. It is, it goes straight to Geoff's email, and it's a great holiday gift, and I'm sure he loves all the responses. So thank you, Geoff, for coming on, and we'll talk to you in the new year.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good chatting with you.
All right. That does it for the last episode of 2024. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for another great year. We will be back next year, as I said at the top. I hope everybody has a great holiday season. Big thanks to PJ Clark for editing and producing this podcast. We did a lot of pods there at the end of the year, and between the shotgun start and this, PJ's done a wonderful job putting them all together. Big thanks to PJ. And we'll be back in 2025. Thank you, guys. Have a great holidays.